Well, let's see. Let's try that again. Does that make any sense now? Betts, if you're still there, I just think we've got a connection here. I'm seeing some microphone activity on my end. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience here, but if you could let me know, can you hear me okay, or is it still a bit of a disturbance? Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast here. Let's see if we can try this again here. Betts, let me know, is that coming through all right or not? There's still no sound, because I'm getting a response on this end. That's very unusual. Hey, good afternoon, Linear. Are you catching any sound? And I'm having a bit of a difficulty when I got started here. There's a bit of a sound difficulty. Are you hearing me okay? Oh, hey, very good. And so it's there? Oh, how about that? Nice. Well, let's see what happens here. Let's see. Go figure. Isn't that something? No, I can hear you now. Hey, very good. Hey, very good. So the sound is back up, and boy, I'm really sorry for the inconvenience here, gang. But anyway, let's start all over again. Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast here. Very sorry for the inconvenience of that start here. Really odd when we started here. My microphone was down. I looked at the feedback bar here, and nothing was responding. So everything's pretty good now. Hey, very good. That's super. Linear, thank you very much for joining us here. I just thought I'd spend some time here today in the stream. Last week we did a lot of architectural stuff, and due to some complications with some appointments I had Monday, probably Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, didn't get a chance to come back and really crank up another lesson plan here. I wouldn't really call this a lesson plan as much as a little design exploration. We started with architecture, spent 3 days. For example, the first day we did some thumbnail sketches, some concept work. Then we went to refine, pick the direction and refined it a little bit, then did a finished illustration. And I think I'm going to do the same thing today as for time invested here, to pick a product design piece here, and just electric razors or shavers, for example. And I brought this guy along just to kind of look at it here. Interesting, it's a Norelco system. It's got some interesting little features to it, but in the most part, the triple head and so forth. I've been around, had a bunch of meetings lately, so yeah, no problem. And it's good to have you on board. You as well, Liz. Betts, thanks so much for joining us here today. So I'm going to spend some time going through some exploratory concept sketches on this little guy here. And when you look at it, there's some interesting things taking place. Got the nice ergonomic shape to it and so forth. But when you look at the elevation, for example, or the front surfaces, it has a lot of, there's not a lot of taper to it. So I'm going to use this as an exercise. What if the next generation begin to look like this and so forth? And how can we generate certain shapes and maintain the flavor of the Norelco head and so forth, and begin to put some concept sketches together. So like we did with the architectural piece, I'm just going to start a generation of little thumbnail sketches and begin to look at exploratory pieces on the actual Razor system itself. Try to become a lot more ergonomic, a little softer in some areas, and adding some more co-mold and some grip systems and the like to take a peek at how this might begin to work. So I'm just, again, ballpoint pen. I'm going to start with some very simple soldier sketches here first. Let's kind of generate this guy and just kind of lay down some shape here. Let's get this through. There's an axis here. Then we'll just pull off of that with another axis here. And let's come back and connect that dot. Pull this out just a bit. Put a little crown on that upper. Now let's come back in and just separate the shapes here. Let's kind of bring this into play, a little bit of separation here. Let's take advantage of this, going a little bit more organic. Let's take that shape into this. And then same thing here, let's bring this crown back in and just put a little bit more of that shape into it here. Let's get a little bit more bulb to it right there. Then just bring this in. And then let's put this over the top. Some of the head systems and so forth, and look at just very quickly, just how do we begin to treat this? Now maybe this surface comes in and marries into another portion here. It changes a little. Now this may be a bit of a texture change here, so let's kind of roll through this and put a little bit of surface into it. A little bit of texture change, give that some distinction. Coming this into this has a little more of a vacuum to it, so maybe that's got a little bit of recess for thumb grip and so forth when you actually hold on to this guy. So let's kind of put that into place. Let it go, and just, let's get this form up on top here. Just kind of break it out just a bit here. Let's do this. A little bit rounder through the bottom of this guy, and let's rotate this thing. Put a little more form to it here. Come back in again with my light source. Get back in a little bit of shadow in this cone. A bit of definition up on top there. Let that first thumbnail go as that. Just a nice little lucid sketch here of looking at the material change. Let's put a more blister to this thing, a little more shape to it, a little more contour. There it is. There it is. Separation. And again, there's just a real good, quick, rapid sketch on how things begin to kind of put together here as far as form goes. And it's just kind of, again, let's stay in that same mode. Some elevations here. I'm looking for a lot more shape. If you look at this thing, it's a little bit on the flat side, but if you look at what we're doing here, trying to put a little more form into the head and begin a little more softer feel, get some more character, generation of a softer form down below here. So we're going to go through some soldier studies here first. Let's kind of reverse that just a bit. Let's roll out of that with that shape like this. Let's do this. Come back into this form here, and let's connect that dot here. A little bit more bulbous in this sense. Let's bring this into form. Let's just cut that back. A little more sculptural here. Now let's bring this into play here and get that same crown head up on top. Let's put it up, we shorten it just a bit. And again, just kind of bury this in here with a little bit of light source, a little bit of tone work here. Looking at very simple little elevation studies here. There's a shaving head there and there. Come back into this, got more contour to it. Now this one, maybe just a simple little thumb hole right about in there. Let's just kind of hold that back, just about there. Let's kind of recess in it. And again. And keep this relatively simple in terms of just overall shape. Maybe this has a little bit more drama to it in terms of maybe adding a little bit of color or a texture change of some sort. Maybe this is toned in. And it gives you that very simple OG return on this thing. It's a little softer. Again, with the thumb grip up on top, and begin to work through this thing in terms of putting some shape and form together here. So let's kind of look at there, maybe another variation on theme here. I'm going to go in the other direction. And at 90 degrees, let's get that shaving head to work through there. The spinning system there and there. Put a little bit of a core separates. This is kind of a floating head that kind of articulates and moves around quite a bit. But again, just really fast little thumbnails, what ifs, and putting some shape together here. pardon me as I turn the pad here a bit. Let's get a bit of tone in this guy. Chord location. And a little bit of this tone coming down the body side underneath the surface itself. Just put a little bit of tone to it. Let it fade. Pick up this little return razor in here, this little offset. Maybe a little bit of a lighting system here of some sort. Just changing the character of the form itself. The on and off switch of some sort, or a little green light, red light disturbance. Battery pack replacement. A bit of a cut line in there, just changing the shape a little bit. Coming back in hand. Again, a little more tone up on top of this guy. Coming back in through here. And then this guy, just a nice little series of, maybe this is a floating hand system here that kind of articulates and kind of squeezes in and out and moves as you glide across the top of the surface and put this into operation of some sort. So maybe this has a little bit of a separation in it that looks like this. Comes along, does that, a little bit more separation into that, and then just a series of co-molded like a soft rubber surface. It just kind of works with it here, just enough to indicate there's a texture change here. And just enough to kind of give it a little bit of a distinction in terms of what we're after here. So maybe on this side there's a little on-off switch, kind of raise that out of there. Put a little bit of a block back in through here. A little bit of a recess. And that's where it falls into place. And there's just a real quick series of thumbnail sketches here. I'm just getting ideations down here. Okay, what do you think? Is this making sense? Can you hear me all right still? I hope so. This has been a lot of fun. And just looking at, again, what really is we're looking at here is just how to make some just very simple, subtle changes to this overall shape. It's a little bit blocky on one side. It's rather bulky too, so we can kind of take some of the weight out of it. It would be kind of nice to look at as well. So let's just do this. Let's put a nice little elevation down here. Just lay it down and get some sort of a spring to it here. Again, just a very simple little melodic change here into that. Maybe this has a little bit more of a return to it. The comes in and does that. Again, notice, sometimes by changing the orientation, you get some pretty interesting elevations or just little soldier studies about maybe texture changes. Maybe that's a grip piece here coming through that center line there. Maybe we'll pull back a little bit on that. And there's my center line here. Let's bring this in. Then fan it back out again. Down the ground line. Again, maybe a hand grip of some sort. A little split into the chord. And again, just an honest approach at just doing some really quick little thumbnail sketches on changing the overall character of that form, just enough to, and there's the rotating head there. In there, and again, let's kind of bury this in place here. A lot of movement in these sketches, and I think that's part of to me, a lot of the fun part of working with this stuff. Put a lot of drama to it. Give it more interest. Kind of exciting little spikes here back and forth. So it just really makes it a lot more manageable in terms of moving the form around a little bit. And then maybe just for what it's worth, we'll just kind of break this into place here and put a little bit of a surround to it and bring these sketches together. And just maybe if I can get a little bit of this to work, just a little bit more tint. Yeah, we can't get that to work too well here. So I'll come back and pick up that to that, just to frame them in. Call that ground. And there it is. And there's the first pass at maybe looking at some shape changes of this electric razor program, and a little bit of a design sense change, and getting a lot more, trying to get a little more organic with it and a little bit more fluid with it. So let's call that phase 1 here. Let me sign this guy. And again, the purpose of today is to just go again like we did with architecture, just a series of sketches, just real quick little fast little thumbnail studies to kind of look at what we're at here and what we're trying to develop and generate, and then begin to turn that into some really interesting, for example, next week, maybe on Tuesday, picking it up again and doing maybe a refinement, pick a direction and start doing some refinement sketches on it, adding some more texture and color and so forth, and then getting back in and maybe making a statement with this guy. So there's a page one, again, product beginning, electric shavers, that goes there. Let's kind of keep going here with another. Let's look at this. Let's come back in and say, all right, let's get this guy into some sort of perspective. Let's put that head in place here. There's my orientation. There's my center line. I'm going to come back in and cut this back just a bit. Cut this back just a bit, and then really come in here and just change that form. Off of this and into that. Notice, there it is. Center line. Into center line, just a little more shape on that side. Bring that on through. Again, let's add another layer on this guy. Let's separate it just a bit so it floats. Notice how I'm just kind of working through the geometry there and getting the sketch set up here, and then begin to look at certain things along the way here. Now, let's just change the character now. Let's get this. Cord connection. Texture change, a little bit of tone in here. And again. Shaving heads themselves, just kind of toning it in, getting a location set. Nothing really detailed here, just again, just real fast theme sketches based on the overall shape and content that we're looking for here. Now let's go back into this. And let's kind of tune into this little offset here. A bit of on off. And in that same position, again, real fast, lucid sketches here. And if you're following along here again, just making sense at all. I mean, look where we are with this shape here. If we can look at comparison here, one to the other, we're getting a little more organic with this form, going a little rounder with it and trying to get some surface work to really kind of sing for us here and changing the vernacular. Let's go back to an elevation here just really quickly. Real melodic. Quick turn here into that aspect of it. Again, off that 90 degrees where the shaving head is. Bringing that into play. Pardon me as I rotate here just a bit. A little bit of a texture change here, much softer. Maybe this is a bit of a coal mold piece, so we can put a little bit of texture to it. A little bit of a split line through here, perhaps, just by definition. Give us a little bit of form to it. There it is. Back in through here. Now let's put a contour through this guy. Put a little bit of tone to it, which tells me my light source is up on top. Now in this case, maybe the on-off switch is here. Up on the side face. So this would be on the on position, this would be the off position. Just put an axis through there. There it is. And then we come back in and tone this guy just a touch. Into the razor head themselves. A little more forming through this. Pardon me as I just turn this around just a bit and get a little more shape in this guy. Again, very simple theme sketches here, but just looking again for different ways. Look how your hand can kind of come in a little shoulder here. Your hand can come in and begin to take an advantage of a good grip system without it being too slippery and easy to control and so forth. So here we are. Let's put more tone in this thing. Reinforce that offset. And again, where the power cable is going to go, there it is. At the end of that process, there it is. There's another one there. I'm going to try something real quickly. Pardon me as we want to grab some of this stuff here and see what begins to happen here. Let's do this. Let's get a nice, maybe a nice deep sky blue here. Let's see if we can come up with something that's kind of unique here. Add a little bit of surface to this thing, which is always fun to work with. Let's see if we can get that Weevil pad out here. And just for what it's worth, a little bit of media here. Even though it's a theme sketch or rapid sketch study, so look what happens when you start to add a little bit of that to it. And a little bit of that to it. All of a sudden, it gives it a whole new certain sense. A little bit more highlight. You can come back in and model some of that shape out of there and begin back to highlight. I mean, that's a theme sketch as far as I'm concerned. Just a little bit more highlight into it. You can also come back in and go very direct. With a pastel, if you want to really emphasize a color of some sort, you can come underneath there with that a little bit and then just rub that right out of there. Gives you a little more contour. So it's kind of defining what the shapes are doing. And even through here, you come back with a little more color and get a little bit of texture change in there. Same with this. A little bit of pastel added. All of a sudden, that changes the character. Put a little bit of chorus in here. There you are, right about there. And let that kind of come through and just blast it in just a bit. Just roll that through, and then all of a sudden change its character. There you are. I mean, look at the difference in giving that a little bit more substance. Those of you following what they're just making sense, and I don't want to go too far here with a lot of technique. It's not a matter of technique. These are still what I would consider to be very strong, bold concept sketches, but you're adding a little bit more medium to them to just kind of give them more definition. And it makes a tremendous difference. It puts a little more content into it. It gives a little more substance, obviously. And then above all else, it's just a little bit of variation on the theme about what a concept sketch is. And I'm a firm believer, don't misunderstand, I'm a firm believer just going through a series of sketches like this. This is what you generate as far as ideas are concerned. That's still extremely valid. But every now and then it's nice to take that same validity from a thumbnail sketch or a theme sketch or looking for a design search and putting a little bit more commitment into it by adding just a little bit of color to it. It doesn't hurt you one iota. So let's carry on here. Let's keep moving. Let's come back in here. A little bit of thumbnail sketch in the corner. We've got some space to work with here. Let's kind of flute this out. I'm back in again, really severe. Come back into this a little more fractured. Let's do this. Let's try that. So it's a lot more OG curve. So let's come back and add something to the base, soften it off. Now let's take that split line right up through the architecture and into the head itself. Again, there's a really good little theme sketch in terms of maybe an elevation. So makes really interesting concept development here. So let's go back in again. A little bit of resets in here. This is all negative, although not negative, but a little bit of an offset, change of pace. This comes in and does the following. There's my center line. There's my shaving head. I'm going to add to it. Pardon me as I rotate out of this thing just a touch. There's my shaving head. There's the floater, so to speak. We'll illustrate that in just a moment, what that looks like in another view. Real scratchy, quick sketches. Nothing really tuned in as far as detail is concerned. Rotate off here, here. Maybe this now is where that power switch might be, in here. So we cut that back just a touch and blister it just a little bit and put a little bit of sequence into that. That's where that might be. Again, power module itself, the cord itself. Now, coming through the contour here and just putting a little tone in this thing. Tell me where the light source is. Highlight. A little bit of shadow here. And especially here, a little darker. Another variation, just a real quick, rapid sketch here. Let me stop right there for a second, gang. Those of you who are still with me, is this making sense here as far as conceptualization or just basic sketch rendering, just ideation stuff? Especially in your case, Bets, we work with it every day, just helping to kind of reinforce the process of not getting too hung up on a lot of detail. Just get the forms done, begin to generate shape and surface, then go back in and take a good look at what we're trying to generate here. I'll stop here for a moment. Hopefully that'll all work for you. I'm going to come back in again here. Another concept sketch. Let's film it on the corner here and do this. Pardon me as I rotate here just a bit. Same variation, just a little stiffer on this guy here. Let's add that to it, like a real soft pillow at one end. Let's take that into the shape itself. Let's put a little parabolic shape into that. There you go. That might be where the trimmer is located up on top and the actual shaving head itself. Come up with that at 90 degrees and get that head to work with us here. There it is. Let's float it right back in. A little bit more grip on this underside of this guy. We actually come underneath with your fingers to kind of grip that portion of it, maybe a soft surface. Just put a little bit of comb mold into this thing, and maybe we change the texture just a little bit. Maybe we add a little bit of color to it, so we kind of change its identity. Just a touch. There it is there. A little bit of tone to it. Very cool. Into here, same thing. A little bit of surface to kind of give it a little bit of distinction. Just getting a theme down. I think that's one of the most important parts about this whole process. Really interesting how to generate something. When we generate something, by generation, it literally means put it into motion. Give it some sort of substance to it. Don't define it or try to refine it right away. What's the essence of what we're trying to sell here? And I think that's really critical. Let's go back to the sketch here. And I think that's part of the process of what we work with time in the design world is just to really get themes down and be real lucid with it and looking for searches and how to deal with it and how to really work with it. And it's a little bit of pot here. That's where the chord system might be right out at the base of this guy. And again, just really quick contours, just ballpoint pen, just feeling your way through the shape, almost very empathic in a sense, where you really begin to deal with these guys in terms of search. When you just search for something, I think that's one of the great things about the idea of the mystery of design. When you search for something, hopefully I can put this in the right context. You're not looking for a final solution. You're looking for a revelation in terms of how to lead you to a final resolution. That's the neat thing about the process. If it's already charted out, you're already there in terms of you know what you're going to do and you figured it all out, then there's really no challenge to it. I think the thing here about what we're doing is really coming in and being very generous, very lucid, very generous in terms of developing its shape, not worrying about the overall feel yet in terms of all the mechanics, but just getting a theme down, then begin to develop that as we go. So let me go back out and put a little bit of rider behind it and connect these dots. Kind of band them together just a touch here. And another neat thing about this whole process is this. You come back in, let me sign this guy first. We'll go on another page. When you have a little background like that, let me see if I can straighten that up just a bit. There it is, going through, there it is there. You can go back in and add all kinds of neat things as far as background generation is concerned. You can go back in, since we're working with that. Let's take a little bit of terracotta and put a little bit of design surface in this thing. Let's kind of go back and just add that. And let's go back in here. Put a little bit of background on these guys. Put a little bit more excitement in the product itself. Then come back through and just dust in the rest of that surface. Then maybe reflect just a bit of it up on top into this. And then back into this. Just using that background as a theme base to kind of put it back into the actual concept itself. And when you're all said and done, not a problem. Come back in. Just nicely come back in and slide through it. And then bring a little bit more excitement in it. Now I come back in and really strash this thing. And there you are. It's another variation on theme with just some very exciting little thumbnail sketches on looking at surfaces and forms for electric shavers. Again, the theme is to look at something like this. Look where we are here. Look at it by comparison. A lot more organic, a lot more, let me move this over just a bit, much more organic, a lot less of a stiff body side or sidewall in itself. And just look at the elevation. It's really flat. We're looking at much more contour, for example, on some of these very round and bulbous, much more ergonomic, hopefully, in time to come here. So let's kind of keep going. There's phase 2. Hope this is helpful, Betts. Your input is great. Thank you very much for the time spent here with him looking at this stuff. So let's go back again and look at something that might be, let's go the other way here. Exploring surface. Setting up the axis first. Now, the reason I start there is for this reason. This helps us determine where the axis is. That's my direction perspective. That's perspective. Here's my center line. Now I'm going to come back in through here and just begin to generate a shape based off of that. And again, just put that through. Follow that through. Notice that now becomes my center line. Right down. Now there's a little bit of puff in this thing, so we'll kind of bring this a little further here. Then at the last minute, just kind of slowly bring it up and bring it back to square one. You know, much more simple, or a simpler shape. A little bit more diagonal in here, just a little bit more roundness to it. Still maintaining that center line. There it is. Now we can start to slash into it and make some real changes. Come off of this crown here. Now really float it. Coming off of that platform, the actual razor heads themselves, and just kind of walking through. Notice I'm not spending a lot of time being really definitive. I'm just looking for something that gives us a clue to work with here. It's hard to stay patient for me when going through the process of alliteration. I just want to find the perfect solution. Yeah, that's a good point, Betts. We all want to look for that perfect solution, but I think what you're looking at here, the good thing you're developing and working through is that you have a vision involved in what you want to see. And I think the more you begin to concentrate on what the vision is and be very lucid with it, you'll find bigger and better solutions. So hopefully that's the case here, that the patience side is going to pay off for you. I'm in the same boat. I go through a series of sketches like this, and I'm not impatient about where the arrival is. What I'm looking for, I'm very patient. What's it going to lead me to? What newness am I going to discover? Makes a huge difference. So let's go back and finish the sketch up here, guys. Back to the center line. Yeah, a little bit of let's take advantage of some of the surface up on top here. Change its character again. Let's break that in. So there's maybe a secondary little form in there. Okay, let's slow it down just a bit. That comes into play here. Now let's put a bit of tone in here. Now let's isolate this out. Get this shape to work just a bit. Now let's turn the page over just a bit, a little more slant. and that light source to bring it on over. There it is there. Let's come down the form here just a little bit. This could be a little bit of a docking device that you kind of plug it into. And again, a little bit of texture change. Working right back toward the center line. And then let's let it fade. Turn it around a little bit. Light source. Color up on top. A little second pass, get a little more tone in this thing. And again, maybe the change of pace is this. Let's pick up on that line right there. That goes maybe textural. Again, notice how that accent kind of worked out as an asset. Part of that discovery process that cuts in, comes back out again, and you've got some sort of co-mold or a very soft surface here. We bring to grip this thing, it makes a huge sense. Again, just a little more texture change, just kind of fill in the blanks. There you are. Yeah, hey, Bets, your comment here. Yeah, you're so, no, I'm not absolutely right, Bets. I think it's just a chance we take all the time about working with this stuff. And yeah, we do have an image, and for example, this is the intent, and we want to focus on that. But sometimes throughout the journey, it's always nice to go through a little bit of a deviation. That means huge change in terms of what you develop and what you end up with. It could be night and day, which is also very, very exciting. So let's kind of adjust here. Wrap this beauty up over the top of that shaving head. A little more contour up on top here. Kind of break that out just a touch more. And let it come back into light source and just fade around it. So there's another variation on theme. Again, looking at the possibilities of just changing what the overall character of that guy is doing based on where we are there. Not a lot of changes to it, just a lot more supple, a little softer in some areas. It makes a huge difference. So that's really been helpful. So let's go back and let's do this. Again, back to an elevation. Head. Very simple. At the same time, maybe this has a little bit of a bite to it here. It changes its character just a touch. Comes back to this. Back to this. Again, off that 90. Where the shaving head is. Just really quick gestures. There's a form elevation study right there. Just a nice little carve into it. Let's take advantage of this guy. Again, maybe a little plug-in system here. That's where the cord system is. Again, this is kind of a nesting area here on this guy. This sets into maybe a module that charges itself and so forth. Now let's go back into this. Again, tone underneath. Up into light source. Let's turn this around, pardon me. And just get that started just enough to. There's phase two. Now, another little study there and just an elevation, looking at it in terms of what we want to work with. Now let's do this. Much rounder. Let's go right back to the axis here. This thing sits on top of the spherical head, and the razor system sits on top of that. So we've got this on top, marrying into its base down below. Turn this about just a bit. There's my center line coming through the form itself. Then we're going to come right back in here and just create a little bit more variation on theme here. Let's change the pace here. Instead of being, let's just go almost pure cylindrical or conical shape. Let's break that in. Let's break that in. And let's just break that out just a bit. And this is where that co-mold might take place. This is much softer, so let's just locate that, tone that in just a bit, tone that in just a little bit. Put the on-off switch here, a little bit of a recess. On-off. Again, light source, and the shadow, up into that surface itself, that little kickback. And again, add a little bit of texture to it, just to give it a bit of a distinction. And then there it is right there. Oh, let's get a little bit more fullness on this side. There it is. That's more like it. There we are. More texture. And again, a little bit of frame behind it. And kind of connect the dots. Again, instead of going that route, let's just add something like this. We'll come back to this and just kind of brush in some surface work. A little more of a fade. Work right through it. And near the end of the whole process, not a problem. You come right back in again with that eraser. Clean it all up. Put a little bit of tone back into this guy. And for what it's worth, there's another pass in just looking at some form studies or concept sketches on electric razors. I mean, it's just one thing after another. It's just so much fun to deal with in terms of putting pieces together here. Let me do this. What do you think, gang? Any questions or bets? So far, so good. Just making sense. Alinea, are you still with us? Hopefully. Hope that the sound is still good, and I'm going through some real fast, real quick little dirty sketches here. And I hope this is making sense. If there's anything there that I need to kind of clarify or regroup with, I'd be more than happy to do so. Let's kind of have a little bit more fun with this thing. Anybody, any comment at all? The bets? Are you making sense? Or is this helping at all? Rapid sketch, really very quick studies here. And we just, as we did last week with architecture, once again, now not to be redundant, but to let us know what the series are here. I'm going to go through a series of these things. Last week we developed a series of architectural sketches. Went from ballpoint pen sketches and looking for a theme into the next session or stream, going in and refining it a little bit. and then coming back in, and the last series of doing a nice finished rendering. So today, with this product design piece, we're looking at just a series of concept sketches, looking for what ifs. Then maybe next week, for example, when I start again on Tuesday, we'll come back in and begin to develop a refinement process with some pencil sketches, add more detail to it. And then maybe the third stream, we'll wrap it up with a nice finished rendering or complement renderings describing what the shape is. Now let's have some fun with this guy. Let's study. Much more organic. There's the razor shaping head here. Let's come up at 9 degrees. Now this one is interesting. This is where one of those deals where you actually grip it like a gun of some sort, and you're actually hanging onto it. For example, instead of gripping around it, you're going through it. So this is all open vacuole here, so it's going to connect the dots here like this. Let's finish up the sketch a little bit. Let's put a little more surface on this guy so it's not so weak. There it is. Then the plug-in device is right about here. So that's taking care of that. Let's put a bit of tone in this thing so we know where we are. That's that. Let's come back in through here. Pardon me as I turn this about just a bit. The shaping head. Let's take this surface right into it, add a little design theme to it. Into the handle portion. Raising head itself, a little more tone in this guy. Very organic, a real departure from where we are here. Obviously, that thing, all of a sudden, we've got a whole new look here. And I think it's interesting to explore. We might be able to take some of these clues from a design perspective and make it function for us in time to come. But in the meantime, I'm just looking at basic shape and theme studies here in today's program, just to kind of refine some things coming in next week. Let's go back into this handle, recess it through. Chase it down. Again, same thing through here. And then while we're at it here, let's set it up just a bit. Now let's go into another study here. Maybe it's a lot more just plain geometric. Going a full, almost 180 away from where we are, where we started. Just an elevation study here. But the unique thing about the elevation study is maybe we cut it up a little bit and do the following. Much more cylindrical. Put a bit of a base on this guy. Let's bring it down just a touch, extend it. Get it down to a base. Overall gesture is this. captive handle, and the razor head. Just a real loose little thumbnail. Well, then let's put a little bit of interest in this thing. Let's do this. Again, handle. Handle graphic, shaving head itself, free floating up on top there, triple setup. Just a little thumbnail study of what that might look like in elevation there. So there we are, gang. Let's kind of wrap it up here and kind of put these pieces together. On the thumbnail side of all this, a bit of tone on that guy. Maybe this variation, a little more textural change to it, maybe a softer compound. I think I go with that, really accentuate this, bring this into play. The handle graphics itself, and again, at the shaving head. And again, let's turn this upside down for a bit here. Put a bit of a vignette behind it, captive. And we're going to call that maybe another pass here. There's another series of thumbnail sketches here. And just looking at this, what the theme today was, just looking for variations on ideas and how to put together maybe a different theme sketch or what ifs on a new look at an electric shaver. Let's put a little more tone in this guy. Maybe this is where, again, that's a very soft, delicate surface to deal with. And we just put a little bit of texture change to it. This little return razor in here is very helpful. That kind of gives us a clue as to what that surface does. It dives in just a bit. And again, we finish up here. And just to make it much more pronounced, we make that sense by coming back in and put a little bit of color into this thing, so we know that that's a bit of a texture change right in there. Same with this, a bit of a texture change. And there it is. So we've got those two pieces coming together. And last but not least, we'll come in behind this guy and just give that a little more theme to it here. Let's just put a little bit of dust in this guy. Work through it. Real subtle. Got a little bit of stroke to it here. Let that fade just a bit. And again on that end, kind of blend that in just a touch. And we'll get that eraser up and just clean up the backdrop. A little bit of hot spot in there. And for all intents and purposes there, gang, what do you think? That kind of concludes the little lesson plan for today, or also the exploratory search for today, and looking at some really interesting little thumbnail sketches for razors. Handheld container type, more cylindrical, very organic and open-handed, more handle gripper type. Let me do this, and then we'll go back and review where we are here. So there we are here. Let's see, we're going to come back. Let's go back in reverse order here. Let's go back and get these guys to kind of tell our story for us here. So we started there, went to there. This is where we started. We went back and just, again, looking at a basic theme with the object in mind. I brought along this Norelco piece just to look at some form of variation on how to work with this from a hand or ergonomics point of view. And just looking forward to the whole concept of making some real subtle changes to electric razor. Maybe more of a floating head, a little more softness in the actual body side itself, or the shape itself, or the form. So we started with those little thumbnail sketches here, looking for exploratory ideas. And again, not to be redundant, but I want to make sure that this format here, we're going to go like last week we did architectural in 3 phases. Today I'm going to take product and go 3 phases. Concept sketch, refinement series next go around, and then final rendering. So here we are. There's a first pass at sketches, just looking at what ifs. Second phase, looking at those sketches, add a little bit of color and pastel to them, but yet still being very lucid with the sketches, looking for a theme or some sort of a concept behind it all. And the third study, going into these, again, just changing the contour, getting a lot more elastic with it, and still being very round and grip related, hand related, and a different variation of maybe more tumbler type, much more cylindrical, conical shape here. Then the last one we did was just another variation on theme. Maybe it's an open-ended, actually grip it like a handle system. Then you begin to move that around for shaving purposes. And this is much more pure cylindrical form with a handle on it. So it's much more direct in terms of getting the job done. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me today here. And again, if you have any information or seek some information on basic drawing skills, please feel free to visit my website at drcontrast.com. I've got a 9-lesson plan there. I'll be adding to it by the end of this month or into the early part of into March. It's going to be a lot of fun and adding to it and getting a lot of response. So thank you very much for that. And if I've said something right today, please tell me. If I've done something wrong or not said something right, please tell me. And feel free to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. And looking forward to it, gang. And again, thank you so much, Linear and Betts. All the very best to you. And tell Sam I said hello. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's a sacrifice of time for you, so I thank you for being on board. Linear as well. Very good to hear from you. I know you're very busy, but thanks so much for tuning in. And to all of you again, and I always end the stream with this very important message, and I think it's very true. I've had the good fortune over the course of time to work with some great people, and it makes a huge difference when you put it all together. And I've always had one mission statement when I go into this program, and it's always been very simple. No matter what the degree of the sketch is, whether it's loose sketches like these, or in some finish work, or some rendering work, or some consignment work I deal with, or commissions and project-based materials I'm dealing with, I was making a very strong point to say that it really is interesting to each one of you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. I think that's really significant. There's a lot of skill out there, and you know what I'm referring to. And Bet's your idea about getting to the solution and being impatient to get there. I can fully understand that principle. But I think you've got a lot of talent to work with, and I think when you go through more of exploratory things and maybe change a variation, maybe it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, maybe it's positive and negative, maybe you change the format or the media system you're working with, let that become a real journey for you to kind of open up the envelope of being much more creative than you already are, because you are very creative, and I so respect what you've done in your career, and I'm looking forward to bigger and better things. And again, it's a very sincere commentary to you. Linear as well. Again, thank you for joining in. Take care, gang. All the very best. Have a great day. We'll see you next Tuesday at 2:30. So again, dare to be great. Thank you again. All the best.